So it is 6:35, and I'm going to call the Underhill Development Review Board for August 11th, 2025 to order. I'll kind of go around the table and give some introductions real quick.
Well, let's just do public comment.
Okay.
If there's nobody here for public comment, we can get going.
Okay, so first order of business is the public comment period. Is there anyone from the public who would comment on anything that's not on the agenda? Okay, hearing no public comment, we'll move on to the public hearing for Catherine and Matt Cross. Actually, let me go around the table and introduce everybody. My name is Brian Birch. I'm vice chair that's acting as chair tonight. To my left is Greg Leach, board member. To his left, Dan Lee, board member. Penny Miller, board member. Matt Chapik, board member. And Karen McKnight, board member. And zoning administrator Maya Holmes, and town manager.
Former interim zoning.
Former Brad Holden. So, okay, so tonight's application for Catherine and Matt Cross is an access, conditional use, and variance review hearing regarding a pre-existing non-conforming lot, which is approximately 5.5 acres. The applicants seek improved access, which includes rehabilitation of an existing bridge and the construction of a new driveway, which will serve a proposed single-family dwelling. The subject property is at 20 Waughbrook Lane and is located partially in the Mansfield Scenic Preservation Zoning District. It is also in the Soil and Water Conservation Zoning District. This application is subject to review under the current regulations, which are the 2011 Town of Underhill Unified Land Use and Development Regulations, as amended through March 3rd, 2020, as well as 2015 Underhill Road Driveway and Trail Ordinance, as amended December 18th, 2018. A conditional use review hearing is intended to ensure compliance with standards addressing the potential impacts of the development on adjoining properties, on the neighborhood, and or zoning district in which the development is located, and as well as the community at large. Section 5.4 of our development regulations, specifically under conditional use review, encompasses site plan review standards, which also address vehicle access. This conditional use review is to be applied specifically to the improved access aspect of the Cross project. It is required because of the potential stream setback, encroachment, and steep and very steep slope impacts. Standards and conditions to be imposed relate to identification, avoidance, and or mitigation of potential impacts. Regarding the variance review aspect of this application, section 3.8 of our Underhill land use regulations states that a pre-existing non-conforming lot may be developed for purposes allowed in that district in which it's located. For example, a single-family residence. However, there is a lack of evidence that the legally deeded easement to access the lot has a width of 20 feet or more, as required by the Underhill land use regulations under section 3.7E. The applicant has requested a variance from the 20-foot width requirement. Should additional information be required, the board reserves the option to continue this hearing to a time and date certain in order for that information to be submitted and reviewed by the board. So next, I will ask if there are any members of the public in attendance or in person or online, comment about the application. And if so, can you please identify yourself, state your address for the record. And if your mailing address is different from your physical address, and you wish to receive a copy of the decision, please provide that address as well. So Brad will pass along the sign-in sheet.
It's already done.
Okay. So I guess we'll just ask them to identify themselves before they give comment. Okay.
Or if you want to do it all right now, whoever's going to speak or whatever you want.
Okay. Where is you? Okay. So there's that before they speak. Next, I'll ask if there are any state or municipal representatives present other than the zoning administrator and past interim zoning administrator and acting in their representative capacities. Seeing no one, I will just state that there are copies of the rules of procedure that this board follows, as well as the interested parties info sheet, are available to all attendees for review on the town website and can also be obtained from the zoning administrator. Only those interested persons who have participated either orally or through written statement in a DRB proceeding may appeal a decision rendered in that proceeding to the Environmental Division of the Vermont Superior Court. If you are an applicant, a representative of the applicant, or an interested party who wants to participate in the hearing, we ask that you clearly state your name prior to speaking. And now I'll swear in all those present who wish to speak tonight regarding the application. So anybody who'd like to speak tonight and plans to testify must take the following oath by responding, "I do," at the end of this statement. So do you hereby swear that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury? I do. All right, thank you. Okay, so next I'll ask the board members if there are any conflicts of interest, or have there been any ex parte communications on part of any of the board members?
No.
Okay. Okay, so our procedure for tonight, we will hear from the following parties in the following order. First, we'll hear from the applicant and/or his or her representatives. Next, we'll hear from the zoning administrator, Maya Holmes. Then we'll hear from members of the Development Review Board. After that, we will open it up to questions from members of the public. Then we'll allow the applicants or their representative the opportunity to respond to questions, either from the board or from the public. And then final comments will be solicited from the zoning administrator, the applicants, and members of the public. And then at the very end, members of the board will have an opportunity to ask final questions and or make final comments.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I missed the opportunity to speak, or is that coming up?
That's coming up. Yep. So that is once we get started, the public's there, you'll speak, you're the fourth group to speak. We'll let you go. So all speakers should address their comments to the board and not to any other parties present at the meeting. Members of the public are afforded 5 minutes unless by request, a majority of the board consents to extend that time. The board may ask questions of anyone in attendance to discuss the application. So we'll go through the hearing packet next. So this hearing packet was sent in advance and distributed by the zoning administrator prior to tonight's hearing, and as we will enter it into the record. The materials in the information package relevant to this hearing include Exhibit A, the DRB agenda for July 21st. Exhibit A2, the DRB agenda for August 11th, the continued hearing. Exhibit B, certificate of service for July 21st. Exhibit B2, certificate of service for August 11th, continued hearing. Exhibit C, the notice of public hearing that was posted in 7 days for the July 21st hearing. Exhibit C2, notice of public hearing that was posted in 7 days for the August 11th continued hearing. Exhibit D are a narrative and applications for an access and conditional use review. Exhibit D2 are narrative and applications for a variance review. Exhibit E is Vermont E911 map. F is the Underhill zoning map. Exhibit G are site plan 1 and 2 civil plans. Exhibit H, a boundary compilation plan. Exhibit I, a bridge plan. Exhibit J, wastewater permit. Exhibit K, a wastewater site plan for reference only. And Exhibit I, the staff narrative. So does that complete of all the exhibits?
Unless anybody has anything else to submit.
Okay, just checking. So all these exhibits are available in the cross conditional use review file, DRB-25-05/WB020 at the Underhill Planning and Zoning Office by request, and also available on the town's website. Okay, so I will begin testimony now by first hearing from the applicants or the representative. Yep, if you want.
Good evening, everybody. Steve Diggle, civil engineer at KS. Part of the design team. Chris Haggerty's on the phone. He's the surveyor who's also part of the team. And then Concepts and Construction, which is Roland Van Dyke, is the one who did the bridge plans for upgrading, rebuilding the bridge. So we're off the site today. As you can tell, it's a 5.5 acre site. It's got some steep terrain and it has the brook that runs along it. So water resources and steep slope constraints that we have to deal with. Mostly undeveloped currently, has a shed, man-made pond, and there's currently a trailer on it as well, as you saw. So the Crosses are looking to develop that with a single family residence. It's an existing, legally existing non-conforming lot, so that's part of the reason we're on here, big part of it. And then we were primarily responsible for developing the access site plan for the driveway. So finding that, threading the needle between making sure we had enough brook buffer to qualify for the waiver and minimize the steep slope impacts to the extent possible, and also meet the 10% maximum slopes and the widths and shoulders and curvatures required by the fire department. So the site plan we developed, that's SP1, SP2, shows the site plan, shows the driveway, has a centerline profile, all the erosion control, sediment control notes and details. The driveway cross section as well. The Crosses were also very particular about keeping certain trees, so we aligned the driveway and added some short walls, less than 3 feet in a couple areas, just to make sure we could cut off the grading before we took out trees. And those trees were, for providing screening from a lot of the neighbors. They wanted, it's very nice rural setting out there, and they wanted to keep it that way. They're very mindful about that. And then the septic design was done a while ago. That was done by David Tubhope. So we saw that all staked out there. So that's kind of the summary, more or less, of the conditional use review. I mean, where everything meets the zoning, but we need a variance for waiver for the brook setback, and then but the steep slope impacts are within the allowable tolerance for a driveway. And then the variance, that is mostly due to the verbiage of the right-of-way, not specifically the right-of-way in the deed, not saying it was 20 feet wide. So the deeds from the 1960s was providing our narrative. I don't quote me, but I believe that predated the actual state ordinance that required the 20 foot. So probably a big reason why it's not in there, assuming that's the case. But essentially the variance application is strictly related to the right of way itself. So with Chris Haggerty's deed research, he confirmed that there is legal access to the northern side of the lake where the bridge is, the northern side of the property. But we couldn't find anything that actually said it was a width. So it's essentially just because of the width requirement in the zoning that we need the variance. And that was something that I believe the town attorney picked up on. So that's why we submitted that after, I think the day of or the day after the the last meeting that was just opened and closed, so.
So is there a boundary, is there a boundary plan submitted?
Yeah, that was a compilation
Okay.
plan, so, that's the one that has a lot of the colors and notes.
Okay.
So I have it over there if you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
did you or Chris gonna walk us
I'll
through
open
that?
up the big one.
Yeah, Chris would probably be best to walk you through that. I have a full-size copy too.
You can send it to Dave online because it's a page.
Okay. Yep, so we're, right now, we're looking at Exhibit H.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me? Are you on?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, we got you now.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the board asked if you could just walk them through the boundary compilation plan.
Sure. So this not so nicely colorful plan, as Steve mentioned, it was kind of done in haste. So I apologize for the color scheme, but the whole point of this plan was to identify the many parcels. Well, I mean, the boundary of this parcel as it sits today and as it's assessed is one thing, but it's actually comprised of like 6+ pieces that make it up what we see today. And with each of those pieces that make this up comes, a chronology of time and when they were first created. Most of these coming out of the Frank Corbett farm, and then which one of those pieces, not only how were they described, which was kind of our first exercise. The second exercise was which parcels include a right of way and how is that described, right? And so what I tried to do with this plan was kind of color code to each of those pieces the text that goes with it, and that's just extracted directly from the deed. So to kind of bring you up to speed, some of the earliest development out here, I believe for a deer camp would have been at the very northwest corner of the parcel. There was 2 or 3 parcels in there, which includes a tiny little piece on the north side of the driveway on the west side of Waughbrook. That's one of the first parcels, along with another 2 that got added on, or this got added on to it. Included that language that gives it, a right of way of unspecified width to the public highway. And then, as you can see as you head to the south side of the driveway, you can see that there's some history here. There's an old bridge abutment, right of way that was associated with that, right of way that transected this property, giving access to the woodlots out back. But the most important, aspect of kind of focusing on the northwest portion of the property is that right of way was established very early on. The descriptions are pretty hokey, but that's been addressed by, I think I'm the 3rd surveyor in here now to try to put these pieces of the puzzle back on the ground. But Frank Corbett was very careful in their conveyances and the establishments of these parcels, that they always had a right of way, and it may not be the best description, nor was it given a width, but that's how things kind of sugared out over the years. And as you move to the east, there are right of ways actually that are that benefit this parcel as well as the Davis parcel to the north, all the way to the woodlots to the east. So happy to take any questions. I understand if you have some.
I have a question for Chris. Chris, this is Penny Miller.
Also
I
on here. I think
Oh.
we're leaking out for some reason. Can you hear us, Chris, still?
Yeah, I can hear you, Penny.
Chris, I couldn't hear you completely because the fan of the heat pump was a little loud, but, so this question you may have already answered, but my understanding is if you're on a private road and say you're the last property owner on the private road and there are 4 other property owners before you get to your property off of a public road. So each property owner would have a right of way over the preceding property owners, right? So the last property on the road, the 5th property, would have a right of way, it would be in the deed of property number 4, number 3, number 2, and number 1, that there would be a right of way given to you. And that would hold for all the property owners. Isn't that right? And so are you saying that then it's from Corbett to the point where the private driveway starts, that all those property owners' deeds don't say that there's at least a 20-foot width getting to where that shared driveway starts? Is that correct?
Penny, yes, absolutely correct. You hit the nail on the head. That's exactly how this is described. The way these parcels went down is pretty much how you described, right? It's very piecemeal, one piece followed by another piece, followed by another, in no particular order. But Corbett was always careful in that if he had laid out a parcel already, and I was going to lay one out behind it, he would always give it the benefit. He would give an existing parcel would be subject to that right of way, and the parcel created would be benefited by that right of way. And you're correct in that I have found no evidence of a width assigned to that. There are widths assigned to other right of ways, just not the one in question that would get you from Waughbrook Lane or from Corbett. So
And so, Chris, you have on this site plan of yours, on this compilation plan, you have some deed language talking about rights of way, but those are relative to the various parcels that are compiled to make this property. It's not really talking about the rights of way on the preceding parcels coming from Corbett, but those have been reviewed also, right? The deed over those, or the right of way over those. They're just not listed here.
correct, correct. The right of ways that are mentioned in these various highlighted, extracted verbiage, what Frank Corbett, the original grantor here, is talking about is assigning a right of way from the public highway to get to these pieces. And it gets a little muddled once you're inside this piece and you're crossing other pieces Frank has created over the years. But by and large, what those are describing is access to them from the public highway, not necessarily across their respective abutting micro parcels that are within the cross parcel as it is now. That's what they're talking about. So when he says, together with a right of way for all purposes over and across the lands of the vendor from the main road to the premises herein described, that's describing a right of way that gets you from the public highway to, say, the bridge that's there that you guys walked. So that's
Thank
what
you
that
very much. Thank you.
Sure.
So that was going back to Corbett, going in reverse.
Yes, yes.
I mean, back to Corbett Road.
So we'll get a chance to ask some questions, but you want to hear from Maya, zoning administrators next? Yeah.
Okay. We're having this hearing because the subject parcel, 20 Waughbrook Lane, is located in the scenic preservation and soil and water conservation zoning districts and is a pre-existing non-conforming lot. It is a pre-existing non-conforming lot because it does not meet the minimum road frontage requirements of 400 feet for its zoning district. Because of this, access review is required. I'm going to read a section from the Underhill Road Driveway and Trail Ordinance, the applicability section. So the provisions of this ordinance are to be strictly applied to the town reviewing body, and waiver or modification to these provisions of the ordinance can only be granted by the select board and DRB as provided in this ordinance. This ordinance applies to the new construction of driveways and the substantial rebuilding of roads, driveways, and bridges, and change of use of a development road or driveway, as in a change that includes without limitation any increase to the length or alignment of a traveled way and any subdivision on an existing development road or driveway that increases the number of lots, businesses, or dwellings, including accessory dwellings served. Any new road or driveway shall be constructed to the standards of this ordinance, the land use development regulations, and any applicable state and federal standards. In my opinion, this application is subject to be reviewed by this ordinance because it involves the construction of a new driveway, which will serve a proposed new single-family residence, and because it involves substantial rebuilding of the existing bridge. Additionally, the proposed access is located in areas defined as steep slopes, and very steep slopes by section 318B2 of the Land Use Development Regulations, which states all other development on steep and very steep slopes is subject to conditional use. In section 318ED, no more than 100 feet of very steep slopes shall be impacted. And based on the drawings provided by the applicant, it appears that less than 500 feet of very steep slopes will be impacted. Less than 50 feet of very steep slopes will be impacted. The proposed access is also located in a surface water setback from the Waughbrook. The applicant has requested a waiver from the surface water setback. The DRB is allowed to grant a waiver for up to 50 feet of the setback, subject to conditional use review. The proposed access is located 14.5 feet from the bank of the Waughbrook, which would require a waiver for less than the maximum of 50%. Just to clarify that language there, I know it's a little confusing. This proposed access, the DRB is able to grant this, would be able to grant this access as it is less than 50% of the setback. Additionally, a variance has been referred because of a lack of evidence of a 20-foot right-of-way along Waughbrook Lane, which is the access to the subject parcel. Section 3.7 of the Land Use Development Regulations require a permanent easement or right-of-way of at least 20 feet in width, which mirrors state statute as well. This means that any development that requires access review on Waughbrook lanes, including any new dwellings, changes of use such as conversion of camps to year-round dwellings, and ADUs will also be subject to this variance process. Based on the engineering drawings, the proposed bridge will be 9 feet wide and 12.5 feet long, which meets the fire department standards and the road ordinance section for bridges, which requires a minimum load capacity of 35,000 pounds.
Okay, so we can, if the board has any questions of either the applicant or our zoning administrator, we'll go around and ask those. And then the next thing would be to take public, to open it up to the public. We'll have a chance after that to ask more questions, but if there's anything you want answered right now, it'd be a good time to ask.
I just wondered about the public. Do we know who else is online, and do we have their contact information?
I've written it down.
Do you have, okay.
I'm not sure who LN is. You wanted to identify yourself, LN, who you are, or if you're gonna speak tonight.
Well, if they speak, they can identify
Okay.
themselves, right?
Everybody else I have.
I have just a question about what is the estimate for the current width of the bridge?
The current width of the bridge is 9 feet.
9 feet?
And that's the requirement also, right?
There is no requirement for width of bridge. The requirement is for the minimum load capacity, and the design bridge meets the minimum load capacity.
Steve, do you know the width of the bridge now? Is it about 9 feet?
It should be on the plans. Is it 9 feet wide? I don't know. It should be on the bridge plans. I think he's got the dimensions on the bridge plan. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
See, 12 feet.
Yeah, it's 12 feet.
Like wide.
Yeah, 12 feet
6.
wide by.
No, it's 12 feet long.
We took a lot.
That's how
You know, or?
Exactly width.
It is 9 feet wide and 12.5 feet long.
Okay, that's the existing
Oh,
bridge.
okay.
That is the plan.
Okay.
The plan.
Bridge.
Okay, I see.
Why am I seeing 12 by 12?
That is the-
I don't know.
Because the 12.6 is outside the bollards.
Is what?
I'm guessing it's outside the bollards, the travel lane is 12,
Oh, yeah, you're right.
the guardrail.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're outside the,
Yep.
Your map is saying.
Oh, yeah, yeah, go beyond. So the running
you're
board,
outside the guardrail.
so the running boards, looks like the deck goes beyond running. The travel way.
Basic
So my, it looks like the travel way maybe 9 feet, but the bridge itself looks to be 12 feet by 12.6 from the plans.
There is no width requirement.
So it's our turn to ask questions? Yep. I've always got one in my back pocket.
Yeah, we've got 3 things going on here, so you can kind of take them one at a time, the issues one at a time, if that's easier.
Yeah, can we talk about wetland impact? Wetlands, and let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Arrowwood did a wetland delineation of the property, or at least where the driveway alignment was going through. There's one small wetland area designated shown on the map. It's in green. I think it's got a blue bumper or it's green, yeah.
Greenish.
Greenish, yeah. I mean, I'm colorblind, so I think it's green. But so it's a tiny little wetland, but it's next to the stream. So any wetland next to a stream is jurisdictional. So we included the buffer and made sure that the building envelope was outside of it. It's not really an impact for the driveway. It's more just making sure the building envelope's out of it. But it's so it was say about I guess southwest of the site. I don't know, when you're at the one corner looking down, you can kind of see the little burn area.
See it down a
There
little
were
bit
some,
more, I didn't
there
see
were
that.
pink flags.
Yep. And
Okay,
then
so-
there was another area identified that the state said was not jurisdictional because it was made by the driveway, like the town road, basically the old town road.
Okay, and you said building envelopes outside the 50-foot buffer?
Correct. Great.
And that's not state jurisdictional.
That one would be, but we're outside the buffer. So once you're outside the buffer, it's not jurisdictional. So like we're not impacting the wetland or the buffer. So you don't need a permit.
But there's a wetland that was identified that the state said wasn't jurisdictional
Correct.
to them,
Well,
but our regulations speak to
well,
not just jurisdictional.
gotcha. I don't think they counted it as a wetland.
Okay.
It's basically a rut in the road where water's traveling down it.
Yeah.
That's field road.
Unfortunately, a lot of property owners in Underhill have had to modify things because of ruts in the roads and town culverts that create wetlands beneath them.
So does that mean Arrowwood did not flag that? Is that, or
They,
they did not put flags on
No, it was
that?
flagged.
I mean, there's one at on this map, where the driveway, I was talking to Steve about this on site, where the driveway comes off of the shared drive.
Yep.
You see to your left, there's a black dot, maybe about like half an inch into where the driveway comes up, left of the driveway, 3/8 of an inch and down half inch.
Yep.
And that, I believe Steve said,
this was
Was
this
designated.
area here. Well,
oh,
it
it's
wasn't.
not that, oh, it's not that.
It was down there, and again, that was where
That's where the ditch is, basically?
yeah, it's where addition, you can see the water kind of runs through there, and it was essentially denied wetland.
Yeah, no, it was, the flags were still there. I noticed it when I was walking in. And then the second area that was jurisdictional was, yeah, by the house site.
But don't we have to have a setback from our, if it's considered a wetland, but it's not considered a wetland, or it's not, or it is,
It was
or
considered man-made, that's what.
a man-made wetland? So that's a different kind of designation for me.
There's typically wetlands that meet a list of criteria.
Yeah,
And it didn't meet that list.
and so that's not, then it's not a wetland.
That's,
That's your understanding?
my understanding is it's not a wetland.
Jurisdiction.
It's not, well, there's class threes that are not jurisdictional, because they'll check the boxes, but they're not big enough to meet the state. So I think that's a half acre or greater, or attached to a stream. But there's also like flora, fauna, the other things that typically have to be part of it. Like, this one, I don't believe met the criteria for it to be like even a class 3.
Okay, so that was the state, district wetland, I'll just say, that said that.
Or was that Arrowwood?
I wasn't,
Tina.
I'm not sure which one we're talking about now.
the one that's man-made.
Yeah, so Tina eventually, I had this last email from her, where she said she doesn't have any wetland concerns, but she doesn't specifically mention that one because it was before determined to be man-made or class 3, is that?
So the state went through, that's there, but that's not important. And so when they went through, the one was up on the top is the one
The
that
second one
they
was
spent
important,
time on.
so we make sure things were correct.
So I guess, maybe my question, I could say this. In your assessment then, as far as you know, have all class 2 and class 3 wetlands been mapped on here?
As far as I know. Yeah, I think they flagged that area, but it was determined that it was, I mean, the wetland rules are something I know a lot about, but I also don't know in detail to the extent an Arrowwood, you know, would.
Could that be a question to Arrowwood? Did they,
When I talked to Arrowwood, they basically said I could take it off my map. So that was,
You could do what on that?
take it off my map.
okay,
It didn't need to be on the map. That's what I was told. And that's just the one down below.
okay.
And that area was where the town highway, so essentially it's the town highway, the old town highway, or it's essentially that spot. So. So kind of where it curves up the hill, like at the base of that.
This is off wetlands, but I have a question. Can you, the 50% of the 25 feet setback is 12.5 feet. So
It's
what,
a 50-foot setback,
No, it's 25 foot,
25.
For
for the driveway?
For the driveway.
25 foot setback, and you can waive for 12 and a half.
Right, okay. So you only need 10 and a half waived, right? Something like that, because it's 14 and a half feet from.
Yeah, we want to give a little room.
So
They
we're
could
within
build-
that, I mean,
yes.
we're beyond that 50%
Right,
of the 25. Okay, got it. I didn't know which way,
right.
which side of that we were on. Okay.
Yes, sorry for the lack of clarity on that.
That's all right. You know, it was my,
So there were walls on both sides, like through a small stretch, is that like to minimize those impacts?
Yeah, keep it tight, and the town also requires a 3-to-1 slope, so to get the 10%, you know, and it just, you could chase that in forever, so. But they're short walls, less than 3 feet tall. I'm assuming they're just gonna use rock, that they're gonna harvest from on site. But we have a rock or concrete block, essentially, for our label. And they may even hit some ledge in that slope, so there's a chance.
there was a rock, by the way.
Yeah, that's a keeper, that's a keeper.
So go
Are
over
you
that.
in the big one?
And then you're
Yeah.
building up over that.
Really?
Yeah, they're gonna have to move that one over.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
keep it as in, move it out of the way.
move it out of the way.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that'll be more than enough for the wall. You
Yeah,
know,
okay.
So they could stack that over.
Towards it.
Yeah, I actually think you'd want it on the Brookside.
Yeah.
It's such a giant rock.
Okay.
Maya, because this is conditional use, and the reason it's conditional use is only relative to the access, because conditional use encompasses site plan review, which is basically what we're doing.
But,
Um,
sorry.
And because site plan review, I think I remember, is only really in our regs relative to commercial projects, so we had to do this under the umbrella of conditional use. So we're only looking at access for that. And then we're looking at the variance relative to the right of way. So we're really only looking at more or less access is this exercise. So we really can't say as a DRB, this is not a subdivision, that we look at the subdivision regulations and say, we want limits to clearing around them. We can't talk about that.
This is not a subdivision.
This is not subdivision, so we don't have that sort of aesthetic or anything relative to it. Okay. All right.
And how are we dealing with that 400-foot frontage? Is that the
So that's
width along?
the 400 feet of frontage triggers the access for me.
And so where on this, where are we getting 400 feet?
So we have the right of way. And so you don't have the 400 feet, hence why.
That's why we're having a
But also, don't we have the ability to waive because of that requirement? What we've used many times in the past, lots located on a cul-de-sac or at the end of an existing dead-end road. We've used that many times.
From my understanding, it is common to waive the frontage requirements. That is a regular practice.
Is this the 400 feet that we're talking from the bridge?
So the 400 feet is what would be required for a normal development. 400 feet does not exist, and the DRB is allowed to waive the frontage requirements of 400 feet.
But wouldn't it actually, isn't it from the Waughbrook? Isn't it from Corbett to this property? No, it has to be fully in. But I think we could use the cul-de-sac, end of the
Yeah.
dead end one.
Well, these are, pre-existing lots.
Yeah.
So, I guess to really make it clean, is where we would issue the variance, just because right away wasn't defined in width.
Right.
I guess a question for Steve or Chris, do some of these other right of ways, does this project clean those up? It looks like there's one to the neighbor handler. Maybe a logging easement, but does the house proposal for a house impact any of those other right of ways or easements that exist to the neighboring properties?
Are you talking about the logging road?
Yeah.
The existing 14-foot
Yep.
over?
Yep, because a 14-foot right of way shown on slide 24.
Yep. Hey, Chris, do you want to speak to that 14-foot logging road right away?
Yeah, sure. So that's still legally in existence. In fact, we believe that to be the old Pent Road that caused a lot of headaches in that neighborhood years ago. Mostly because I think it crossed that ancient abutment down at Waughbrook, and that bridge washed out. And I fully suspect that today's driveway was a rebuilt access by Stanley Knapp. But the 14-foot wide right of way, its beneficiaries is not super clear. But we're giving respect to it being there. And in the background, we're going to look at who those players are and whether or not we can make sure it's legally extinguished. But in the interim, we're giving respect to it being there.
Yeah. Okay. So it does appear that I have the house shown on that right away, so I will clear that up. That's something that if it makes for, we can say as a condition of approval, is to have the billing envelope in it, the 14-foot right.
But is that sort of a buyer beware kind of situation, that the crosses know they have a right of way across their land? Somebody else could use that right of way, whoever the beneficiary is, and the crosses just have to accept that. It's not got anything to do with us
It's,
No,
To do with-
100%. I mean, and is par for the course for this entire neighborhood, right? I mean, it's littered with right of ways, and this one just happens to be probably the most historic. But most of the practicality of that right of way, that ship has sailed. Either by landowners that may have or may not have used that, or may have been benefited by that right of way. The land ownership and land use has changed out back, and therefore the practicality of that easement is gone. But I would, to piggyback on what Steve was saying, I mean, that the quote unquote 14-foot wide right of way is not its location is not set in stone. As long as due respect is given to, a practical solution around the building envelope, I think that would suffice to entertain that potential use of that right of way in the future, if any. Because it's not that it's necessarily in its only location that it possibly could make its way through there, with the exception down by the brook, that it only stands to be improved as a result of this anyways. So that's just one more option. And I would say don't feel obliged to fix it to the ground just because it's mapped that way. That we could make accommodations for that.
So Chris, you could just like kind of move to over the driveway, like when the driveway is this driveway is built, like it's shown on the plan.
Mm.
Is that like a fair statement that the right of way, that 14-foot right of way, could just, since it's not fixed, just kind of go over the driveway, still be used for access?
I would say that's a very good solution. I guess I would ask Steve and the applicants to make sure that seems practical to them as well.
yeah, I mean, typically when something like that happens, there's normally needs to be like a shared use agreement or something, because if they're gonna be logging or something and using that, they're gonna need to fix the driveway, but the, this would make it more feasible for something like that to happen anyway, so.
Well, would it be better just to leave it where it is? It maybe discourages people from wanting to try to go up what looks like the existing right of way through trees and boulders, and then work something out with the crosses later on down the line if they want to adjust it? Do you think it'd be?
Yeah, I mean, it's a floating right of way, so it's essentially any way they can get through there.
Just getting 14 feet through that property. Okay. Well, yeah, I don't think that really is
An issue.
yeah. Does this require like a plat be recorded, this project? Okay.
And how about fire department access? It looked like in the text, it said the fire department cannot necessarily guarantee they can access the house. But it looks to me like the driveway is built to our specs, which the fire department approves of.
Is it the bridge that in the fire department?
Well, it's the road, the shared driveway, even Waughbrook Lane itself doesn't meet it. So,
Oh,
I mean, we were out there with the fire department, we walked around, they weren't sure if they could provide ability to serve letter or not, but we talked about maybe enlarging that pond and using that as a water source. I've worked on other projects where in Jericho where, we just needed like a 300-gallon water tank and a booster pump and some sprinklers or something along those lines. So it's kind of another issue, but we're doing what we can to meet the specs for fire department. So hopefully at least a small truck can get up there. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of a larger issue that probably affects everybody on Waughbrook Lane. I think some of those are only 12 to 14 feet wide, that road. I mean, it's a pretty narrow road.
So would that affect the CO? That will affect perhaps the CO. The fire department can give an ability to serve letter. We don't need to see that because this is in a subdivision.
Yeah.
That's not our purview.
If it was a subdivision, definitely, but these are pre-existing lots. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I've always thought it's more of an insurance issue.
Yeah, let the insurance company.
So we have a very limited focus on what all of this is about. It's just really about this driveway, this right-of-way issue, and then the steep slopes and the setback.
I would like also to clarify the requirements for when a variance can be issued. Variances are not often issued, so I'm going to go ahead and read the 5 criteria that must be met, and if the criteria are met, then the Development Review Board shall grant the variance. And so, here we go. Number 1, there are unique physical circumstances or conditions, including irregularity, narrowness, or shallowness of lot size or shape, or exceptional topographical or other physical conditions peculiar to the particular property, that unnecessary hardship is due to these conditions and not the circumstances or conditions generally created by the provision of the bylaw in the neighborhood district in which the property is located. Number 2, because of these physical circumstances or conditions, there is no possibility that the property can be developed in strict conformity with the provisions of the bylaw, and that the authorization of a variance is therefore necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. Number 3, unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant, as in this case, the applicant. Number 4, the variance, if authorized, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood or district in which the property is located, substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property, reduce access to renewable energy sources, or be detrimental to the public welfare. And number 5, the variance, if authorized, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and will represent the least deviation possible from the bylaw and from the plan. And so this applies specifically to the establishing of the 20-foot right-of-way of Waughbrook Lane. So this would affect, again, any future development on Waughbrook Lane.
Oh, you mean if we decide that the variance holds for this property, we approve a variance, does that mean any of the other properties would also, that would be a consideration for other properties?
No. Any other property doing development would also have to go through the same variance
A
process.
variance, okay. That's whether they have an accessory dwelling or whether they subdivide, that they would also have to get it. They wouldn't be able to do it
They
without a
can't
variance.
use the same variance, yes.
All the properties
All the
on
properties.
Waughbrook. Okay.
So Chris here again. Can I bring up one more item?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just to piggyback on the 14-foot right-of-way item that we were talking about, the existing right-of-way there. I just want to make it clear, and one thing I forgot to mention was that it's really depicted with an abundance of caution. That in 2004 there was a case with Stanley and Mary Knapp versus Gamarchi that I think was an attempt to completely extinguish that easement, and it has the look of a blanket extinguishment from a variety of possible beneficiaries of that easement. That's great. We're not exactly sure if that has all of the legal teeth it needed, but it was more specific to the plaintiffs and defendants in that case at the time. But the language in that court case do suggest that a number of other landowners who may or may not have had rights to that right of way also extinguished their rights. So I just want to make that clear that it's possible there are still rights associated with that right of way, but rather unlikely. So that's all.
Getting to the variance criteria, we did provide a narrative that went through them.
Yeah.
I could go through them again if you want, or if it's been accurate, but but basically the unique circumstances, so that's the irregularity one. So the right-of-way irregularity affecting this parcel can be traced back to the enclosed warranty deed from 1960, which provided legal access to the parcel, but not specified right-of-way width. Portions of the existing shared access driveway to the parcel are also constrained by ledge outcrops and steep slopes off the edge of the driveway. So essentially, the existing shared driveway is the only way in without affecting other issues. So because of such circumstances, so criteria number 2, based on legal, topographic, and water resources constraint, the only legal access is that shared driveway. So it's basically reiterating that, and just basically saying the only thing we're looking for is relief from that 20-foot width requirement. The unnecessary hardship was not created by the applicants. It was done before they were born. The variance, if authorized, will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. I mean, they're looking to develop, just like the other lots in that area, single-family residence on 5.5 acres, and they've been very careful to try to make sure they keep trees in certain areas to provide screening. So, in my opinion, it'll be developed in accordance with the character of the existing neighborhood and the adjoining lots. And it's the minimum relief. Just the minimum relief is saying, we don't, it's a non-specified width, and they're saying we don't need it. So I feel like this is one of the rare occasions a project meets all the criteria for variance. I'm at DRB, we approved one, so it was for a handicap ramp next to a house on a brook. So this, again, this is another one where it does, in my opinion, meet all the criteria.
And generally, where is it thought that the shared drive, where is it thought that Waughbrook Lane ends, and it becomes a shared drive? Is that prior to Chris's map here?
Yeah, I would say up where that camp was with the, there's the camp and the shed across from it.
Yeah, the road that continues kind of to the right, it goes uphill. And
Okay.
keeps going.
Okay.
So essentially, this would just be a shared driveway that they're crossing the Davis.
I see. Okay.
And it could continue on, I guess, in theory, to the McCain lot, or maybe even the Hadler and Canister if they use that 14-foot right away. But yeah, they're all gonna have to come in here for review for any of this anyway, because of that lack of 20-foot right away specified.
Any questions from the public? We can go back to questions after. Good with that. Yeah, so if anyone from the public would like to,
See, you could make room or somehow.
yeah.
Speak out.
Happy to discuss.
So anyone in the public would like to speak or ask questions, come to the chair, just state your name and address. Direct your questions to the board, and then we'll direct them from there. Yep, come right up. So name and address?
Peter Davis. I live at 15 Waughbrook Lane. Nancy, my wife, and I have lived at 15 Waughbrook Lane for 41 years. A portion of my property right away is shared access to 20 Waughbrook Lane. Now that we've all finally had an opportunity to visit the actual property at 20 Waughbrook Lane, we have first-hand confirmation of what has long been ignored and tucked under the radar. Catherine and Matthew Cross have been living there for 16 continuous months in their 18-foot camping trailer together with their 2 dogs with no approved active wastewater facilities. I submit to this group of representatives from the town of Underhill that the application for access permit should be not considered further. It seems to me entirely premature, inappropriate, and out of order to be allowing any access permit proceedings while the crosses are in violation of both town and state rules and regulations that specifically restrict living on that property before the proper infrastructure is in place. The Crosses have no other living options. They have been living there full-time. Additionally, as the town's required notice points out, the subject property lies within the fragile soil and water conservation district. Wastewater regulations cannot be willfully disregarded. The 16 months is actually a restart of a spectacularly failed first attempt at living on their recently acquired property over 3 years ago. On that occasion, Matthew Cross, together with his professional driver, attempted to deliver a 35-foot trailer to their newly purchased campsite, arrogantly proclaiming incorrectly that to all the witnessing neighbors, "This is my bridge, and I am bringing my trailer to my property." Alas, even a professional driver was unable to overcome the laws of physics, and this oversized living unit proved way too heavy and long to navigate the legacy but non-legal access logging road to their property. The Crosses were ultimately forced to, on this early occasion, to retreat from living prematurely on their property. But they made their intention clear. It is their property and they can do whatever they want on it, ignoring all rules. It is also important to note here that the location of the Crosses RV is prominently visible to the frequent year-round recreational hikers, bikers, and skiers that travel the legacy logging road that passes by this property. These people have been observing the wastewater living violation for the 16 months as well. Let us not be distracted by semantics, living versus camping. There may be an attempt to deflect compliance by arguing that they have been camping, not living on the property. The basic issue is the Crosses have been spending every night, save for a brief period or two out of town, in their RV for 16 months, living there, however spare, with no approved wastewater provisions. The Crosses have no other living options. This RV is their home. Clearly, the time is over for allowing this behavior to continue. On behalf of the adjoining landowners and nearby neighbors, I respectfully request the Development Review Board and Zoning Administrator require the Crosses to become compliant with state and local potable and wastewater regulations before considering any further their application for an access permit to their property. They must stop living at their property by being required to remove their camping trailer and associated materials and not be allowed to return until an approved wastewater system is installed together with other required infrastructures. Any further access permit discussions, while critically important, should be delayed pending a rescheduled site visit to verify regulation compliance. It is not possible to have an authentic and meaningful regulatory discussion in view of this continued living activity. To avoid taking this measure runs a serious risk of appearing to tacitly condone this non-compliant behavior. It seems to me that this is the best opportunity for the town of Underhill to enforce authorized development compliance.
Thank you.
You want to submit that in the record?
That'll be an exhibit, right?
Yeah.
We have an I.
We have an L.
Yeah, we have an L.
So we're at N. If there's not a letter in the L, right?
Anyone else like to speak to the board? Okay. Yes.
My name is Lynn Barley, I live at 25 Waughbrook.
Okay.
Can you explain to me in like layman's terms how the driveway will, like erosion prevention will happen with the driveway so that it doesn't go into the brook? That's the question.
Okay. You can ask Steve when he's back. Anyone else from the public?
Yeah.
Okay, open it up.
Lee Van Winkle, 88 Corbett Road. And my question is directly to
Matt and Catherine, is that what have they been doing about wastewater? You know, what are they doing about septic? That's my biggest concern. And I'm happy if they can answer that, that's fine by me.
We enter that now.
Can they answer that?
Is this relevant to the?
Well, direct your questions to the board, and then we'll,
Okay,
get you.
that's my question.
Okay, good question. Anyone else?
Nancy Davis,
15 Waughbrook?
15 Waughbrook. As stated previously, we've lived there for 41 years, and we have seen how the brook can change its configuration from year to year. When we first moved there, the brook that is close to us has changed its shape significantly. It has changed due to the amount of runoff that comes down off the mountain in both directions. But the one pertaining to the crosses, which concerns me with this driveway going up that steep section, that brook has changed. As I stated, due to the amount of snow melt, rain, we have had flash flooding there, and you probably noticed that that culvert down the brook was our first bridge. And I think it was approximately 20, maybe 25 years ago, we had a tremendous rainstorm and flash flooding. And when we came home, that big culvert was no longer there. So we reconstructed with a better form of a bridge. So I hope that the board will consider what rainwater, flash flooding, snow melt, and how the brook can change. Because I think they could have erosion if you are having a driveway that's 14 feet. Now, at least that's how I'm envisioning it. 14 feet from center to the brook, no matter how much riprap you get. And depending on these big flooding times. I mean, we've been very, very fortunate over the last couple of years when we've had major flooding, that area of Underhill has not experienced with Stowe, Middlebury, Morrisville, Hyde Park. So I do hope you take that in consideration.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
We have some folks online here.
Yes, thank you. Anyone online like to ask a question? Just raise your hand or speak right up. State your name and address. Is Liz moving? Okay. Okay, no comments from anyone online? Okay. Okay, so it comes back to us now. Anyone has questions for Steve or Maya?
Well, one question I might have, just because our purview is access, we were taking down an existing logging road that I don't recall was very steep. Could that, and that's far away from the brook, could that be the access?
It's, doesn't meet your zoning. So, and
Oh.
what we're proposing the driveway to be further away from the brook, until we access that upper shelf, but up there, it's, pretty far away from the brook. So that's
Right.
that's as, you know, we pull it back here. So the tightest point is in this area, and we're further away from the brook than where the existing road was. So we're into the bank more for that reason, because we want to give the brook as much room as we possibly can.
Yeah, so there is like some impact from 25 feet, but I'm guessing like to push that outside of the 25 feet would have impacted more steep slopes. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's a balancing act. So we're trying to get it in that zone between kind of the top of bank and, but we're digging into that bank too, just into the steep slope portion to keep it away from the bank as much as we can.
We do have a regulation that allows, what, 100 linear feet?
Yep.
In a very steep slope. Would that allow you more leeway to move it further away, or?
Well, then we get into more impacts, more clearing.
Yeah.
So we tried to use the existing road to the extent possible because it's already been impacted, it's already been compacted, like. So, and we,
Because ultimately it's more erosion, the more you're impacting a steeper slope. You don't want to.
yeah, then you have to, yeah. So like, then you have to replant it, but it takes a while for it to replant. So we're really trying to tighten our footprint in. And we have it super elevated in those couple areas to around the bends and stuff. So we have on the inside, we have a rock line ditch, and that's the way we prevent a lot of the erosion, big rock line ditch. And the pond, basically there's a watershed divide between the existing pond and the brook. So there's not much water coming down this, and any water that basically falls on the house or the driveway will be put into rock line ditches and then, armored. So but during construction is the most vulnerable time. We have erosion control and sediment control notes, which, follow the handbook for the state.
So in your calculations, the water from the impervious surface and the water coming off the hill once the road is built goes into a ditch away from the brook. It's on the other side of the
It's on the
driveway.
uphill side. We eventually have to culvert it over, but yeah, and that's all gonna be armored with type 2 stone. So that's like basically 20 inches. Yeah, I think it goes anywhere from 6 to 30 inches or something, but it's graded, so.
What did you say, culverted over?
Well, there'll be a culvert at the bottom of the driveway.
Oh, I see, to go back toward the brook.
But, I mean, there's not much of a watershed coming at us. Because, the house is on this kind of small ridge, and then there's the other ridge right here. So we, most of the water is kind of going to the pond or the brook around us. So it's like, already going around us. And there'll be a swale around the mound as well.
Right, so I think what Nancy was talking about was not necessarily water coming off the hill, but the brook itself moving and filling and flash flooding and the like. Was your perception being out there, you've spent time out there, that it's a place where it's gone before, it's gone closer? It's moved around in that area. Sometimes you can tell by where sediment is left and the like, where.
Yeah, I do a lot of work on brooks, especially flashy ones. The way that town highway has held up is encouraging to me. So that, I think the bridge, I'd like it to be longer, but it's an existing bridge and I have to work with it. But that's a different discussion. But we're pulling away as best we can. We're threading the needle. I mean, could it wash out? Partially it could, but so could half the roads in this town. So, I mean, we're ideally, we would have another way up there using, the longer or the existing log road, but that they don't have legal rights to that. So, it's not an option. So giving where they have legal access, where it's possible, that's where we have to have it. So.
If there are, I wasn't thinking about that. I wish I'd paid more attention, but where the camper is now is very close to where that we walked down that old logging.
Yeah, I think that's like over here.
Yeah, but isn't that, if they already accessing that spot?
So that's a disputed area. So like, we know basically what Chris found is that I think it's about 200 feet after the bridge, that shared driveway appears to be on the Cross's property. But then the property line goes on the other side, and who owns that and who has rights to that is a disputed thing. So it'd have to be cleaned up, But that's
It's not clearly the process.
It's not clear the Colossus, and that's not what the process, are interested in pursuing.
Okay.
So basically, what we know they own, and I feel like this is the best compromise we can provide for them, while still, being mindful of erosion and brooks moving. But, yeah.
Can you give us an idea? I mean, when we walked up the center line of the road and we were in that vicinity of the steep slopes that it seemed like the brook was pretty far down. Do you have an idea of elevation from the new road to down to the waterway?
It varies, but it is down there a ways. So that's the other thing is like, we took the top of bank from mostly the top of slope, not the lower one. So, I mean, looking at all that, I mean,
You're up high.
we're up high quite a bit. I mean, like I said, I think the most vulnerable thing there is the existing bridge. And the driveway, we've pushed it over as much as we think is feasible and constructing without moving that whole hillside out. The crosses very much wanted to have the trees in this area protected just because it's a wooded area and it's a steep slope. So, yeah, I mean, it's been, this was an iterative design. It took me, normally I can get a driveway design in 1 or 2 iterations. This was like a 4 or 5 iteration design. So it was challenging, but I think we've been as mindful as we can to see the concerns that relate out with the brook. Because I mean, that's my big thing is flood studies and watching brooks move and change. And I from what I'm seeing there, it looks, we're going to leave all the trees we can. And it is quite a bit. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 feet above it in certain areas. So.
I was wondering if there's a concern with the existing bridge washing out because of its elevation as the old culvert did. Is that a concern? And could the new bridge be built higher to have more waterway below? Is that?
It will cost a lot more. So they're looking to basically rehab the existing bridge to meet the loading standard.
With the existing
abutments.
And it shows more than what the old culvert was.
Yeah, so it's at least an opening, but to today's standards, it would be a bigger bridge. So if they were to build a new bridge to the current stream alteration, it'd be 1.2 bank full, which, probably be a 20-foot or more bridge. Mm-hmm. So I actually have that calculation somewhere, but they're allowed to rehab that existing bridge as is, according with new deck, essentially. But if they wanted to redo the abutments of a bigger, I mean, then they may have to, but at some point in the future. But this is, again, another compromise that makes it accessible. It'll actually benefit the Davises too when it's built, because you can get an emergency vehicle now over the bridge where they probably won't come over that one, in my opinion. So ambulance or, the smaller fire trucks or whatever. So I mean, it'll improve the situation.
Because it's wider than what's there now.
And stronger. Yeah, right now that existing deck, I don't even know if a structural engineer would load rate it, but the plans that Roland came up with get it to the structural capacity needed for a fire truck to go over it. So in an ideal world, it'd be a longer, bigger bridge, but we are providing the necessary improvements to at least provide a crossing for emergency vehicles today. And it's still at least an opening, not a culvert. But yeah, if it does wash out, they could be looking at the future of having to redo that bridge. But I mean, they're not the only private people who.
There's a lot of culverts.
From my and Brad, there was concerns that it's not our purview about wastewater, current wastewater, right? So that's your purview.
Wastewater permitting is a state issue.
Well,
There is a wastewater permit on it. There's
There's
just no wastewater system installed.
right, so the existing situation being potentially in violation is nothing that we have anything to do with.
That is correct, yes. I am only engaged with wastewater systems when issuing a certificate of occupancy. Once a house is built, I look to make sure the wastewater permit exists, has been filed, and the town cannot require wastewater permitting until the certificate of occupancy process.
However, there was an interesting angle on it that we could be permitting something that is currently in violation in a different area of the town's regulations. So that's what's the thinking about that?
Well, kind of my personal opinion is that we're here to like review the application, but that issue, just kind of heard a little bit of testimony about it, but it sounds like a zoning administrator issue, if anything, but for town, kind of a separate issue.
Like that end of the table issue?
Yeah. I mean, if it was.
I just wanted to state that Lindsay Wild did put her hand up. I just wanted you to not forget about that at some point whenever you're ready.
Yep. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on that, but.
To build the permitted wastewater system, they will need a driveway and a bridge, the bridge rehab and the driveway built. So I need to get the system that Dave Tudhope permitted and the staked out, we will get access what we needed to build that.
Right, I think the point was to not, I don't know how to say it, I don't want to use the word reward, but not to reward someone with a permit when they're in violation of something else in town. I don't know, maybe violating your dog license. I mean, do we have anything about that in our regulations that you can't give a permit for one thing because you're in violation of something else? Is that an issue in our town?
What do you want to state where you're at now?
It is a state issue that
No,
was.
with the camping.
Oh, yes. So in terms of the camping, the crosses, which this is news to them, have been issued a warning of zoning violation letter via mail today about the issue of occupying a camper for more than 120 days. So that issue has been addressed in terms of the town's amendment.
In your opinion, does it affect our decision on this application?
I believe these to be separate issues.
Thank you.
Do you want to try Lindsay?
Yeah.
She's right there.
Hi, Lindsay, did you have a question?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Wild. I'm a resident of 5 Waughbrook Lane, PO Box 306 in Underhill, Vermont. And I just want to be on the record to bring up my concern about the maximum density population on Waughbrook Lane. It's a private 1-lane road. And in the 26 years I've lived on it, I believe I'm disproportionately affected by the population that's been expanding on Waughbrook with the continued development of the existing lots. So traffic density, wear and tear on the road, the maintenance costs have gone up substantially and more regularly. And I think we have to look at why we're continuing to allow these pre-existing lots to be developed. There has to be a maximum density that we feel comfortable with. And even though these existing lots are not legally a subdivision, it's a de facto subdivision. Waughbrook Lane, Upper and Lower Waughbrook Lane is a de facto subdivision because of the density. And in fact, I just wanted to call attention to why the town of Underhill continues to allow variances to be allowed. There are several more properties that could be developed. And at what point do we say too much? It's too much impact on the community. Number 4, you talked about the variances, that it will not alter substantially the character of the neighborhood. Well, I can tell you having lived on Waughbrook for 26 years, I'm at the foot of Waughbrook, and every car that goes by daily goes by my house disproportionately affects my property compared to anyone else on Waughbrook. So, and I believe that's true of the Van Winkles on Corbett Road. So that's just all I want to say. And I like what Nancy Davis brought up regarding the movement of Waughbrook. Part of my property is abuts the Waughbrook, and that has changed substantially and has changed the area of my property over the years, 26 years I've lived there. So I understand that the desire of people to want to live on Waughbrook Lane, I totally get that, but the density is becoming a disproportional impact to me as well as other neighbors. So I think we have to ask why we're even allowing a camp to be changed to a year-round residence when so many variances have to be given to the original rules, which was to protect the scenic preservation as well as soil and water conservation. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve, did you want to respond to anything the neighbor said? It's clear, you're good.
I mean, it's already an existing lot. Yeah, no, I don't know what's wrong.
How does the board feel?
We get to hear the pub, does the public get to respond again, or is this it? I forget.
Public has, yeah, I mean, if anyone would like to respond, we can take that now, but if there's anything else you want to add, sure.
Can I speak again?
Yep. Yep.
I just want to speak briefly. In my statement, I mentioned camping versus living. I think that people need to get a little bit clearer about that. The Crosses are not camping. They are living on the property without wastewater. That's a pretty clear state regulation, and you're not allowed to do that. So if that helps you a little bit in terms of, there was some confusion about camping and living. Let's be clear about what's going on. Thanks.
So. Yeah, so is there anything that you want to add, or?
I can just say to Lee's question, we dispose of all waste offsite. We pay to dispose of it legally offsite. And we're not in violation of anything there.
Okay. So we're gonna have to make a decision on like 3 issues here. The access issue, the conditional use like related to the access, and then the variance. So kind of heard a lot of testimony. Does the board feel like they have enough information, or is there anything else that you'd like them to provide?
I can't think of any more information I need.
Your options would be continue this hearing or close this hearing. And the only reason to continue would be if there was more information that we needed to see to make a decision.
I feel like I've listened to everything here and now I feel like I'd like to go back again and look at the property. That's, I mean, I was very mindful of what I was seeing before,
Mhm.
but, just the distance from the brook, which I was looking at. I'd like to look at that again. I know that Steve's done engineering and studies for the road and everything, but I live on a road where when you get a downpour for 24 hours, the brook changes. So
Okay.
I don't know if that's possible.
Well, so if we close the public hearing, question for Brandon and I, if we close the public hearing, we would have to like issue a decision within 45 days of that point. Is that like a written decision?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, I think you could close the evidentiary portion. However, if your site visit resulted in you wanting to hear more evidence, so you get the cart before the horse. So it's either way. I think you're allowed to go back. You wanted to go back and view the property in the course of your deliberation. That would be allowed if the crosses were amenable to that.
That isn't considered evidentiary, that we're collecting
But
evidence.
so you'd close the evidentiary portion and then you'd be under deliberation. And if deliberation meant wanting to go back to the site again and see something, then I think that would be totally.
That then doesn't become evidence?
No,
No.
That's deliberation, right? I want to go back and see something. If we're in deliberation, if you're in deliberation, I want to go back and check on something so you could further discuss it in deliberation.
But we can't get any more information.
Right. The only problem with that is if you went back and saw something that you'd like more information on, the evidentiary portion is closed. So.
And when we close it, the 45-day starts. Okay. How about if we, with this is just kind of throwing this out there, we're meeting next week, Monday, right, for another application. If we did want to keep it open to, so Karen and anybody else wanted to do a visit, could we do that and then close it next week?
Sure.
Okay. How does that?
I like that better, Brian, because, I'm not that knowledgeable about anything. If I saw that there was some sort of erosion somewhere, I don't know enough of how to interpret that. I'd want to then say to Steve, oh, I saw this big area of erosion, so I can't assess things myself.
Yep. Yeah, so essentially we'd be kind of continuing this till next week and put it second on the agenda.
Sure.
Okay.
Well, of course, we have a site visit scheduled.
Okay, next week.
I believe for next week, and then the hearing, and you continue this after that. And if the crosses were amenable, you could go back to the site to visit.
Please.
Independently.
Right, I was just going to say this would be not a quorum, not announced, but just individually, right?
Yeah.
You might want to coordinate it. Yeah, Steve, I will not be around.
Yep.
I don't even know if I'll be able to, maybe I'll call in, like Chris did. But
Next week? Yeah, well, next week, so I guess what could happen next week is if we had questions that needed answers, we could continue it again and send you those questions. But if we didn't have questions, we could close the hearing next week and then make a decision at that point.
If I get something that's kind of helpful, would you communicate through the?
Yeah, we could just.
Yeah, I would reach right out to you.
If anything comes up this week.
Yeah.
I can try to respond by Brian.
Yeah,
Okay.
if anybody from the board had a question that comes up this week, direct it to Maya could direct it to, for discussion at the
Ideally
next.
before Friday.
And do we have the crosses approval to do that?
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay.
Would it be cleaner to just bump it out to our next regularly scheduled meeting?
Well, we have one next week. Yeah,
Right.
today.
No, I know, but Steve isn't able to make it there, and it gives us 1 week.
That's gonna put it the second week in September?
That'll be 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Well, and we're running out of summer for them to move
Yeah.
forward, this is gonna go to, so they're gonna modify some of the bridge as soon as they can, things of that nature, so.
I threw that out there just because I knew we were meeting next week. I don't know if,
Yeah, no, I totally understand
Yeah.
that perspective. I just heard Steve wasn't able to make it and.
Ideally,
imagine
we
there being
won't need
questions.
Steve at the meeting because questions will be answered by the meeting already.
Oh,
So if we have questions, to let you know this week.
And I will direct them to Steve.
And get them before Friday afternoon to give
Yeah.
Steve some time to.
Yeah.
And if anything does come up, I guess next week that we still don't have an answer to, we end up continuing it again, but if we have all the answers we need, we close it. So.
Take a motion.
Yeah, so who wants to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to continue the hearing to the 18th, is that?
Right.
Of August.
Okay, motion by Matt,
I can second.
okay, second by Greg. Okay, any discussion on that?
18th, we're saying the second, so 7:30?
Yeah, so,
Time and date, right?
You're right, you're right. I think it'll go fairly quick. When was the site visit scheduled?
Site visit at 6, meeting start at 6:30.
And that better be a pretty quick one. That's
It
about
is, it's very,
15,
it's-
20 minutes away.
It's very, very straightforward. I think 7:30 is a good call.
So I do have a question, and that is, I walk that route often. Can I still walk that route unofficially as I do? I hike it with my dog.
Karen, what route are you talking about, Waughbrook now, or are you talking about?
Oh, I do a loop.
Oh, okay.
So I come down.
So did you want to just state that for everybody here, that 7:30 on the 18th?
yes, let's take a quick vote on that. All in favor?
7:30 on the 18th, folks.
All in favor?
Right, aye.
Okay.
Okay, all opposed?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we will meet again. We'll continue this till next Monday at 7:30.